Dorado Workshop, and this is our first part to a four-part series on our secretary desk set. What are we doing today, Dad?
Well, we got those 4 series, but we got 3 parts to build, and the table's the first thing.
Okay.
Start at the foundation. What I'm going to do, Rick, is we've got legs here, and they're tapered, and I got to taper them,
right.
And they tie into the rails with dovetails.
Right.
And then what, you're going to put the bead on?
I'm going to bead it, and I've got a slick way of tying the top to the frame.
I'm going to put this nice mold on the top, and you round the legs.
Right on.
I'm ready to go with the tapering.
Okay, let's go.
What I want to start off with first here, and I'll just raise it up, let you have a look in here. Got quite a long cutting bit in here. When I say long cutting, the surface area of it's quite long because the legs are 1.5 inches thick. It's just a straight cutter, got 2 carbide tips, and we got a guide in it. Now, I built up a jig in here to do that with, and I'm going to take this out. And the leg itself has got taper on the one side, and I've got a line here. You can see kind of what my pattern was. But I need a straight part down here first, and then the taper. And when you taper things down, we're tapering down the grain, so it shouldn't tear at all because the grain is running out and you're running with down it, so it should be good in it. Now the jig itself is made out of some Baltic birch and a couple of hold downs, and all it does is simply follow that guide. And when I do it, you won't be able to see the guide because it's underneath the work. And I've left a little tab here to start with, otherwise you'd go by, get something to catch to. Now when we put the piece in place like that, got a little stop at the back, put your hold downs down and lock them into place. Now, what we need to do is raise that cutter up so it comes right above the top here, so it clears the cutter. Don't feed too fast. Give it time to cut. And when you rough bandsaw these out, make sure that you don't take too much at a time in a bite. You can make the guide smaller or bigger. You can take a little at a time if you like, whatever. I've set this up so the diameter of the guide just depends on the thickness of the cut you want to take. Let's see if we can get some power in here. And we'll start with the first one. Got a little bit of a bend in here, needs to be straightened out. We'll lock it in, and we got power. Okay, take that one out. Boy, I should show you that. There's some real quarter cut there. Look at the nice grain of that oak. Now we'll take the next one, lock it in, same procedure.
After cutting the tapers, Dad changed to a 1-inch guide, a 1/2-inch dovetail bit, set the height to 3/8 of an inch, and started cutting the pins in the rails.
Now, got those, I'm going to hand those to Rick so he can go to work. Now the next operation is the legs. So we get rid of the fence in here, get rid of some dirt, my little brush in here a little bit, clean that off. Above all, don't change the height of the bit. You have to change the height of the bit, you have to do all the pieces. What we're going to use is, being this goes any direction, we're going to use it as a fence in here. And the first operation, and I'm going to unplug this, is we've got to get these legs, and they're in pairs. So we're going to have to set this up in the center of the bit, and we've got a little mark on here, and we'll put a clamp down on the fixture itself to the table so it acts as a fence. And the next thing we have to figure out is how deep do we want to go. And we're going to run that in here, and that deep, or however deep those rails were. And I got a little mark on here, and I'll just transfer it up so I can see it. And we'll put that about the center of the bit. Now we need some kind of a stop. And the stop here is like that. Look at the stop. We'll have a quick look at it. I took a block of wood here, and I drilled and put a dowel in it. The reason for the round stick is when I used a square block, the cuttings came up and stopped it from going, and you're always cleaning them. By a round stick, they could hopefully work away from it. So we'll set that block like that. That's my depth in it. And we'll get a clamp in here and see if we can just clamp that down. I got a little mark here that I got for the depth, so I know where I'm going with it. And we'll tighten that down. Do a couple like this, and then we'll do the other one. And remember what we're doing here. On this side, we're doing the straight side, and this side, we're doing the tapered side, but we got to get it in a different location. So we'll set this up in it, and I'm pretty close to what I want. We didn't change the height of the bits, so we'll just run them. Okay, now we got a pair of those, and they pair up. Now what we got to do is get that side. Now we got to do the opposite side, and this time we got to move out. So I'm going to take and move this fence out. So we'll take the clamp off here, and we'll do the center one because they center up. I don't think we'll even have to move our stop maybe until we get the block into place here. And a little bit of debris there that sets up, and we'll set that about like that. And I'll leave the clamp upside here so I can see what I'm doing. We're going to come in there just a little long on it. I'll just come back here just a bit. Leaves a little margin for that to come to. Now I'll go up and I'll stop to the block again. This time my debris did build up some, but because of this slot in here, it'll probably help a little. We got a place to put it. Remember, we haven't got much of a flat surface to work on, so be careful what you're doing here. Now, let me just show you where the pairing came. There's the pair now. See, we got them two paired up inside of it. Now we got to do is come down on the inside, but it's on the short taper, so we have to center it. So we'll loosen the clamp again, and we'll go back here. And let's see which one I had. I got a mark here, I think, on one of these, a center mark. What we want to do is be centered, and what happens in it is when we put that rail on it, that little sample here, then that rail will center on this piece and leave you a little margin on it. That's the idea of it. Now, we'll just take and move that fence ahead. A little bit more in here. I'm going to rotate that cutter. Usually those bits come with a center on them, so you have no problem trying to find it. We'll lock it down. We'll put that in. And let's see here. That looks great. Now remember, it's the flat side that's down, and they're all the same on this one. This one doesn't matter because we're on the center of the piece. Let's start it up. Now, if we can get a pair here, we'll just have a look at these. We got these all set up inside of here, and we'll just take and hand those over to Rick here and let him go to work. Now, I'm going to take this system down because we got the top and we have to put a decorative mold on it. So we need to unplug the router and change the cutter. The cutter that I'm going to use this time is a classical bit. I'll tip that up. Don't forget to unplug your router. People say, well, you can put an external switch on it, but I'd sooner know where the plug is when I get in here and change cutters. Pop that together, take the cutter back out, And we'll go over here and have a look at this cutter. Got a bearing on the side, but I'm going to run to a fence. It's got a decorative in it. What do we have in here? We've got a cove. We had a shoulder, square shoulder here, and then we have a roundover portion of it. We're going to stick that in here, but I've got to get the guide out first. So we'll get rid of the guide and wring that off. And then we'll put this cutter in. Easier to get it through that direction. Pop it down in here. Now, maybe we can just tip that around and you can have a look as when I bring this out for height. It's easier to set the height up here. Rick always does this, and I think it's a great idea. You can see down your plate as to the height. What I'd like to do is get a square shoulder on that cutter down in here. And if you look on side of it here, and I might be able to turn that, right in there you can see the shoulders above it. So we're going to get a little line. If you don't, you're obligated to get that fine circle in it. That's very difficult to do, and then you end up trying to sand it out. So now we'll lock that up there and lock it up real snug. We'll drop it into place, and we'll go to a fence. Now the neat thing about the fence in here, and I'm not sure if I used that fence with it before, so what we're going to do is just clamp one end out here. We'll clamp one end, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with that. Get it set up in here, just down, and just snug it in there. Keep that tight, swing this away. What happens is that we should be able to do is cut a pattern right in the end of that. We're going to cut a little pattern. I'm going to just sneak a little more in here. And here's how you do that. You got one end that's fastened snug in it. Now we're going to plug the router in. We're going to turn that on and bring the fence into it, let it cut its own path. What it'll do is leave a profile in the fence, and it'll act as a chip breaker. I didn't get much of a cut because I had used it there for that kind of thing before, you see. Now, just going to snug that just a little in here. A lot of thread on that thing I had open for that stop. When we run this, we've got the cutter on the down side here. So this, you pick a face side, whichever side is your top, that's the best in it. And this one, we've got a few little knots in the bottom side of it. So we'll put this face side up. I'm going to get rid of that fence because I'm going to dig in here. Now, let's just look at this. We got the end grain. Always do the end grain first because any chip out on the end, then we'll go down the side, go down that end and back up the side again, and that'll leave you a clean cut. So we're plugged in, we're started.
Well, first thing I think we're going to do is drill the divots so we can hold the tabletop onto the rails. We've got a V-groove bit in place here. The next step we need to do is bring in some material. So we'll bring the material over in place here. And what we've done is sort of marked where we want to put the groove. This is the short rail, so we're only going to put one in this. This is the long rail, and here we're putting two in. And we put them at about 6 inches from the edge. So we'll lay this in place here now, and let's just slide this underneath. And we've positioned the fence in the right position where it's going to give us so we can put that screw in place. So all we're going to do is line up now till we get to the line. And you could be close. It doesn't have to be right on because all it is a screw that's in the back that's holding the top on in place. And anyways, the next step is to zero out the bit. We've done that now. Let's set it up so we know how deep we're going to go. So we'll run it up. And lock it down in place. Got it tight. We're just using the bar to give us 3/8. So now we've got it all set. I'll move these pieces over to the edge here so we don't drop them. Get my hearing protection on. And my glasses. And now that everything is set up, we're going to release the lock to run the router up. And let's go and do some drilling here. We'll plug it in and start the router. So there's the divot. Now what we do is we got a flat spot to move the drill hole through this and then mount the tabletop to the rails. So let's finish those pieces now. Take the next one, line it up, slide it into place, and right about there. I finished the divots, removed the fixture, and started setting up to route the decorative mold on the face side of the rails. What I'm looking for is to have a little bit of a line on the bottom here. Now, it's all depending on what you want to look at. Another nice look is to have no line on that, but just have the edge. So you're pretty much at that time looking to decide what you want to do with your rails. So slide this over in place. Let's get the fence. Position it. Make sure that the bearing's not giving us a hard time. So we'll clamp the outfeed side first, and we'll move it over here so you can see it a little better. Clamp down the outfeed. It in place. Make sure that we've got the bearing isolated. And clamp down this side. And tighten it in place. Now, let's take a look at that. That looks pretty good for me. Now, we've got to remember which side that we're going to grout this. Remember, if we put the divots on the top, that's where the fence is, or the top is coming to. So we want to put the molded on the X side and down. So maybe we should sort those pieces now. So we'll make sure that we've got all the pieces facing the right direction. We're all set that way. Let's check to see how our power is. Plug it in, and let's cut our pieces. There's the shape and the mold. Maybe I'll turn it up so you can see it a little better on the end. Gives us the profile. And if you want, I preferred the little line on the bottom. If you prefer not to have the line, then you just move the bit down so it's just flush to the edge. Let's finish the cuts. Now that I've completed all the cuts on the pieces of the rails, the next thing is to set up the 1/8 inch bit, and all I'm going to do with that is mold the edges of the legs. Dad, have you got the legs done? Oh, great, thanks. I'll set those here for now. And fence down, change the bit. And the bit I'm going to put in here now is going to be a 1/8 round over, because we just want the bottom rounded over on, or the edges all rounded over on the all four of the legs. So we're going to take out the draw line bit now. The bit I've got here is just a 1/8 round over, so it's very small round over on it. We'll use that, plug that in, tighten it down. And I'm going to set it up so there's no line on it this time. So if we just get it exactly where we're looking for, That's right on to the full profile of the edge, because we're just rounding the edge. I don't want to put any lines on this. So we'll lock it down in place, and put the pin on this side here. Now, let's bring one of the pieces over here, and let's see what it looks like. And we'll plug it in, and we'll start cutting. See, the edge is just nicely rounded over. You don't want to have a square, sharp edge. That's all we're doing, is just knocking the edge off.
Now it's time for Tips from the Workshop, Viewer Mail, and Tricks of the Trade on router bits, tips, and wood chips.
Tip this time is a way to cut the haunch so that the pieces fit together. Now the trick is we've gone and routed out the dovetails on this side, and we need to knock out this haunch so it fits. Here's one that we've got finished, and it just slides in place so that we can cover up the groove on the bottom. That's the purpose of this. All right, so to set it up, what we've done is we've put a large cutter, 3/4 inch. This one here is 1 inch in diameter. And what we want to do is set the height up so it's got the height of the notch that we're going to cut. Set the fence up so we've got a large side here, and just run it in till it catches the edge. So let's do that. Get our hearing protection on, plug it in, and we'll cut it. And there's a quick way to cut the haunch perfect every time. All right,
I got the
pieces
top
here.
molded. Oh, you brought a lot of parts.
So I'm going to give you these two,
Okay.
and then one of
Can I have
these.
one of those too?
I'm going to put the long ones here in the middle.
Pretty
Let's see if we can
important
get
how
the
we
side
put these,
ones.
isn't it?
Yeah, you have to put it right.
Gotta have those nice molds you put on there on the outside edge. Man, I
You
got
should
those.
dry fit before you.
Wouldn't that be a good idea?
Don't break them now.
Don't break them, eh?
No.
Okay.
Put this one down here on the side.
Put
Maybe I
it
should
upside
do it
down
this way.
maybe, eh?
That works better.
Now,
Ooh.
turn it up. Oh, oh. Let me hold it.
Okay, you've got
I
that.
got the two of them.
Let's see if we can get this first one here. That one's going to come in.
Lots of pieces to fit here.
Yeah.
I'll go down that one a little bit.
We're not going to do what the guy, what did he do? Dry fit his door once. And when he dry fit the door, he forgot to glue it because he had to go get the phone call.
Yes.
And then
And he
one day he was
varnished it.
showing his friends how this door worked, and it fell apart.
Yeah, it lasted quite a while though.
Yeah.
It was nice of him to tell us. He said he was embarrassed.
We're not saying names, though, right?
No, we won't do that.
All right.
You got that? So
I've
we'll
got
pull
it.
off
So
the
you've got
bench?
the top to fit.
Let me just take this nice molded top we got.
Right.
And we got it.
We'll set it up here, and you get that mounted
And centered where it belongs.
where it belongs. We've got the first part of the secretary desk.